President Obama, what you said is not acceptable. I'm going to say it again. Respectfully, what you said is not acceptable. Not to me, not to a host of black men out there who's not even thinking about voting for Donald Trump. What you said is unacceptable.
It is.
I'll tell you why in a minute. But before I do that, I want to go to Khalil Thompson, co-founder and executive director of Win with Black Men, who responded to criticism of Obama's comments. Take a look at what he had to say here. Quote, I believe President Obama is speaking to a tangible, visceral understanding of what it means for all men to relate to women in America. Calling out misogyny is not wrong, end quote. To co-founder Khalil Thompson, you're wrong too. And what you said is unacceptable. You see, what you're missing is that you're basically accusing black men who come up with a reason to not support Kamala Harris as engaging in misogyny.
Okay, family, before we go any further, I would ask kindly that you guys hit that like button. And if you're not a part of our family, our community, the Young Black and Wealthy family, go on ahead and hit that subscribe button and join on. It's absolutely free. I think Stephen A. Smith has made some exceptional points here through this video. It's a semi-blind reaction because I haven't watched the whole video. But at the same time, he's saying some of the same things that I've heard many black men say, including myself, that President Obama was wrong. I believe that President Obama made those statements out of frustration because he's used to getting his way. And he said, these Negroes ain't listening to me. They're not listening to me. We threw another black candidate in front of their face and they're refusing to vote. Who the hell do they think they are? Who in the hell do these black men think they are to have a mind of their own, to have the intelligence enough to vote for who they feel like will best benefit them? They must be losing their mind. That's the arrogance of people like President Obama and all of these different talking heads and pundits and other Democrat elites in the Democratic Party. They act like they own us. They talk to us like little boys. Not only that, to question or to call into question our support for women, for black women, is just absolutely crazy. To bring up our mothers is absolutely crazy. To call into question our manhood is just wild to me. Based upon us making a decision, looking at her policies and her record and saying, no, this ain't for us. That's wild. And not only that, if you look at it, we voted for President Biden because she was on the ticket, black men. We voted for, in mass numbers, for Hillary Clinton. We voted in large numbers for Democratic candidates locally, like in Chicago, Lori Lightfoot, which is a woman. And not only is she a woman, she's black and she's lesbian. We voted for, I can't think of the mayor in Atlanta several times down there. And these are executive offices where they're decision makers. So don't even try to play that game with us, man. Try again, President Obama. Try again, Democrats.
Whatever happened to disagreeing without being disagreeable, President Obama? What happened to that? All of a sudden, we want to challenge men and our love and our affection as black men
Preach.
for black women. We want to bring that into question because we've got an election coming up and people may have the temerity to think differently than you. It's because she's a woman that she's in danger of losing this election? Didn't Hillary Clinton win the popular vote in 2016? Didn't she get over 2.8 million more votes than Donald Trump in the popular vote for the 2016 election? Last time I checked, she's a woman. Are we there sitting here and implying that black men would be more apropos to support a white woman than a black woman?
Preach.
Is that what we're saying? Is that what we're saying? It's a rhetorical question because it makes no sense to me. Before I go even further, let's hear more from Mr. Thompson himself. Quote, "We're not a monolith. However, we are just like every other American in this country who wants a good paying job that we can provide for our children and participate in their lives and the lives of our partner, that we can get them home safely, afford to go to the grocery store, save a little for retirement, and have a vacation." There is absolutely nothing wrong with that explanation, Khalil Thompson. Why didn't you say that from the jump? What's up with the misogyny comments? I will have you know, and President Obama, our 44th president of the United States, who I voted for not once but twice, who was the president from 2009 to 2017, who to me was exemplary, who to me had the greatest first lady in the history of this country, who has been a phenomenal role model to black people and to black men and the men across this globe. That same Barack Obama, how could you say something like that? How could you ignore the facts that are lying in front of all of us? You don't want Trump to be president. We think that Trump could be an unmitigated disaster. In my opinion, he'll be on a revenge tour. In my opinion, there's a lot of things he bloviated about and didn't deliver on. We don't want to get into too much about COVID. We don't want to get in too much about him overblowing his contribution to HBCUs, the wall that he was going to build, and the Mexican was going to pay for it. He ended up building 2% of the wall, and the Mexicans didn't pay a dime. We could get into a whole bunch of stuff about him. That's a given. I understand that. But let's get back to the part about black men. That's what we're going to talk about right now. That's what we're going to talk about. President Obama, why didn't you tell the folks with the cameras rolling and the black men in attendance that there's been diminishing black voters, particularly black men, since you were in office?
That's a great point he made. Why are black men leaving the Democratic Party? Why are the numbers beginning to diminish? I can tell you why. It's very easy to see. Maybe people like President Obama don't actually know. When you promote an agenda to emasculate black men, they have a tendency to want to leave the party. When you promote a homosexual agenda constantly to black males, these are the images that you show of them. They have a tendency to begin to leave the party. When you promote laws and policies that are anti-father, that are anti-black male, when you've put laws, and black men now have educated themselves on all these issues, when you've wrote laws, put policies in place to drive them as fathers into prisons and for inordinate amounts of time, and they know that now, and they woke up now, I'm sure they're going to have a proclivity to leave the party. What about the so-called anti-poverty policies that they put in place that say that there cannot be a black man in the home? What about that? Black men have educated themselves. They're well aware of what's going on now. Now their families have been broken up because of that. When their wives or ex-wives, a girlfriend, ex-girlfriends, baby mamas can go to depend on the government, and the government becomes the father of their children more than them, even if they have a history of providing. When black men continue to suffer under an antiquated child support system, and men as a whole, but especially black men, when the statistics show, and the CDC has done reports about it, that black men are some of the most involved of all racial demographics as parents. When you put laws and policies in place to force them to pay for children that they end up finding out are not theirs, when you don't put policies in place to make it to where that all children that are born should have a DNA test to prove that it's the father's, when we have a 30% chance that the child is not going to end up being theirs. So many of these parental cases have come up, and the studies have shown that 30% and above of men are taking care of children that are not theirs. So you've put things in place that have literally been anti-Black male, anti-Black father, anti-Black family. Black men have wisened up. They know what's going on now, and now they're beginning to say, well, you know what? I don't think it's a good idea that I continue to be a part of a party that has put things in place that are destroying me financially, that are destroying my community, that are destroying our families. And not only that, the person that you want me to vote for has a record of driving Black men into prison and keeping them there, even when the state says release them or the federal government says to release them. And she had to be sued to release them, when we know that she is the vice president and her boss is Joe Biden, who co-authored the 94 crime bills, 3-strike laws. So Black men know about that. So they're starting to move away from the party who has portrayed themselves to be their friend, but it's really not.
In 2008, 95% of the Black populace voted for Barack Obama. It dipped in 2012 by about 6 to 8%. It dipped another 6% in 2016 when Hillary was running. It dipped even more in 2020 when Trump ran against Biden. It's been dipping since 2008. It didn't just start. Was that about misogyny? Was that about a hesitancy to support our women? I am getting sick and tired of Black men being raked through the coals because of some imagery of not being supportive of Black women. Do you know what most Black men would do if they saw a Black woman getting harmed in the street?
Facts.
They put their lives on the line for that sister. We talked about the absence of Black fathers in the past. What do we do simultaneously? We applaud the mothers who've uplifted us, who've nurtured us, who've made us into who we are. I can make an argument. No one loves
Facts.
women, particularly Black women, more than Black men. No one. You must know this. Black men support the Democratic Party more than everyone but Black women. That means we support the Democratic Party more than white women,
That's
more than
all.
white
These
men,
are all facts.
more than Latino women, more than Latino men, more than Asian women, more than Asian men. Nobody, in terms of percentage, supports the Democratic Party more than Black people. Black women first, Black men second. Even as we sit here today, as Kamala Harris is neck and neck with Donald Trump, she's getting at least 80% of the Black vote, according to the polls. And if there's a question mark about her,
undeservedly so,
why don't we tell the truth? It may very well have nothing to do with her, per se, but what she has inherited. You have a president in Joe Biden who has his own history. Don't get me started with the crime bill of 1994.
just talked about that.
We want to bring up Trump in the 70s and rent control and all and denying rent to Black folks. We don't want to bring up Biden and how he got along with segregationists in the 70s. We don't want to bring up how Kamala Harris, then a presidential candidate in 2020, called him out for his support of segregationists when it came to busing? We want to ignore that. You don't think black people heard that? You don't think there's some trepidation in the hearts and the minds of black people from time to time? At least from the past? Not even talking about what he's done during this administration, which some people will believe his policies and his heart have been in the right place in some of their eyes.
And me personally, as a black man, as an American, I don't believe that any of his policies were in the right place. He was doing the right thing. Look what he's done. First of all, shout out to Stephen A. Smith. I'm a huge fan of his. Obviously, I haven't agreed with everything that he has said over the years, but the majority of the things that he says, I'm in agreement with. Love his show. Glad that he came and done his own show on YouTube and on, I think he's got it on the some of the podcast stations as well. But he's really able to say what he wants to say and speak freely on this YouTube channel. So shout out to him for that. Also, we can go into the number one reason outside of historical facts, some of them we just mentioned about President Biden and Kamala Harris. We know that the last 3 and some odd years has been a failure. We know that the money in our pocketbooks doesn't spend the same way. We know because we see illegal immigrants in all of these urban areas, New York, Chicago, where there's millions of black people at, Denver. They placed them all in our communities, and they're sucking up all the resources. And we see the people in our community struggling, white, black, and in between. And we seeing that these illegal immigrants are getting all type of benefits after breaking the law, because when you come into the country illegally, that's breaking the law. And so they've been incentivized for breaking the law. So when you see them, you see auntie who might be handicapped, getting $250 a month for groceries, and groceries are high as hell. And then you turn around and you see an illegal immigrant with a $13,000, $14,000, $15,000 food stamp balance and a $5,000 cash balance, and you see auntie struggling, and you see cuz struggling, and you see mama might be struggling, you're going to have a problem with that. When you see that as a demographic, black males, you've been ignored in the party while they elevate black women in every way, including into positions in government, and they don't put us in those positions, which I have absolutely no problem with them elevating black women and women in general, while they elevate black homosexual males because they feel like they're non-threatening. But any black male that's masculine, that speaks up, that's passionate about his community and his masculinity, his manhood, you throw them to the side. You've ignored them. You've overlooked them. We know that. When we see policies in place right now where we see our country headed into war because they're fighting through proxy wars, and black men's sons and nephews and uncles, and even some of them might end up having to go there and fight these wars. They're saying, no, we don't want no part of this. When we seen under Donald Trump, there were no new wars. We seen under Donald Trump, there were in our community thousands upon thousands and millions actually of illegal immigrants. We seen that under Donald Trump, the economy was better. We had more money. So these are the reasons, common sense reasons, why black men are deciding to or moving in the direction of Trump. It don't have nothing to do with identity, being black, being a woman, and it shouldn't. And we should not, as men, or just as Americans, as human beings, sensible human beings, be voting for anyone based off identity. We shouldn't be voting for anyone based off what school they went to, what part of the country they come from, what sorority they were a part of. Makes absolutely no sense. So stop acting like black men don't have the sense enough to make intelligent decisions based off of evidence, based off what they've lived through, to say, well, you know what? That's not good for me. Maybe this might be better for me. Keep that in mind.
You're President Obama. How do you ignore that? Inflation, the cost of living, the price of gas, the price of groceries. That don't matter? Folks ain't paying attention to that? Immigration and our borders.
Should have let them cook.
And this belief that there's an elevated level of sensitivity towards them, as opposed to black folks struggling, if not starving in this country. Yes, that plays a role too. I brought it up right here on this show. When the mayor of New York was talking about $53 million in prepaid credit cards for immigrants who came across our borders illegally and having prepaid credit cards for them. And I said, wait a minute, black folks been starving for years. We ain't get that. You don't think they notice? You don't think they notice? Is it possible?
Like we've been hiding under a rock.
That the only reason some black folks, not me, but some black folks may not be inclined to vote, or they may be a bit disenchanted, or dare I say may even be willing to go as far as voting for Trump. Is it possible that it's policy as opposed to misogyny? Is it possible that they've looked at a Democratic Party that is locked in on addressing or not addressing immigration and folks crossing the borders illegally?
That's
and
right.
have prioritized focusing on that, along with other issues, identity politics and beyond, that has become such a focal point that has turned off folks in the African American community. Some, not most, not all, just some. Is that possible? And is it possible that that is the reason why even Kamala Harris herself has become a bit more assertive in addressing the issue of immigration?
Okay, family, I think we're going to go ahead and stop it there because we don't want this video to go on too much longer. But the thing about it is this here. We see Kamala Harris this week. She released a plan for black men, which is really not a plan at all for black men. When you look at it, many of the things that she says in there, it says black men and others, meaning everyone. And not only that, I don't really think that they're direct enough, and I don't think that they addressed the concerns, the major concerns that most black men have, to be honest with you. Like, you know, it's some of us into crypto, but the vast majority of us are not. When you talk about, oh, we're going to address this issue and we're going to do things with weed as far as legalizing it and trying to get more black people into owning dispensaries and things of that nature, that's fine. I have no problem with that. But at the same time, we got to worry about milk, bread, gas, tuition, health insurance, life insurance, dental insurance, daycare. All of these things need to be addressed first. You ain't worried about opening up no fucking business if you can't afford to pay for the basic necessities to get you and your family by. You're not worried about opening up a business if you can't go to the grocery store and get enough to make it through the month. You're not worried about opening up anything. You're worried about surviving. Once we get a lot of our people past that part, and I'm talking about, to be honest with you, we're talking about black men, but it's black men, black women, white men, white women, because the whole of America is struggling. because this administration has ignored us all, to be honest with you. There's been unmitigated neglect. And so I hope y'all enjoyed the video. If you did, I'd appreciate if you give it a thumbs up. And once again, if you're not a part of our family, the Young Black and Wealthy family, all you have to do is hit that subscribe button and come on and join our community. I love y'all. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for the support. To all the people who have recently subscribed to our channel, shout out to y'all. For all those who have been here with us, shout out to y'all as well. Don't forget to give the family a hug for me. I'll see y'all in the next video. God bless.